Welcome, my dear students, to this English class with me, your tutor, Atinyo Sekose. Today's topic is Chapter 5, that is Toasted English by R.K. Narayan. And remember, in our previous class, we have discussed a little bit about the confusing things about the language that is English. And here in this essay, the author is also trying to address that same point or address that same problem that we find in English. So first of all, we are going to find out a little bit about the author here. So R.K. Narayan, 1906 to 2001, was born in Madras, South India, and one of his first and most celebrated novel is Swami and His Friends, which would be introduced to you in the later class. Then his famous work, The Guide, won National Prize of the Indian Literary Award. He authored 5 collections of short stories. In 1980, he was awarded the A.C. Benson Medal by the Royal Society of Literature. In 1982, again, honorary member of the American Academy and Institute of Arts and Letters. So here is a brief introduction of the story here. English language is no doubt a very fascinating language, but at the same time, it has its own share of contronyms. And what is contronyms here? Contronyms are those words that have a lot of multiple meanings. It can also be, we can also say that it is paradoxical and controversial. So when I say contronyms or paradoxical, controversial, those seems like a big words, but it means the same thing, which means that the confusion arises because of the fact that it has lots of varying meanings. A single word can have different kinds of meaning and interpretation. Language is always evolving with mankind. I'm sure you are aware of that. And that is why it is always undergoing a change. For instance, in today's time, we are very familiar with the abbreviated words such as the LOL or the OMG, all those things. That is the impact of technology. We are so used to typing and texting, so those words we use it casually. So language has changed tremendously. So those are some of the awareness of language that you will find in the backdrop of the essay that is Toasted English. New words are coined every day. You know, even a lot of new words are added to the dictionary, and even, like I said, LOL, that is been added to the Oxford Dictionary in 2011. See, it evolved into a word, and now it is considered as a word in itself. However, since it is always changing, it is also always undergoing a process of altercation, or we can say some words becomes disused. We have also discussed a little bit about archaic words in one of our previous class, those words that are no longer in use, such as, for instance, thou, thou. It means you, but you cannot actually use that word, replace you with that word in your conversation. So those are some of the confusions, and those are some of the changes that you would find in English. Now, this language, so that's why we can say that language changes over time with the social context. And what is this social context? This is something that we are going to refer to again later on in the essay. The social context is comprised of the social interactions, the culture, the ethnicity, we can also say, and also the impact of, I've already cited one, that is the impact of technology, you know, the changing world. So all these things plays a huge role in the altercation or changing of language. You would find that in this essay, you would find some marked differences, a detailed study of some marked differences between British English and American English. So when we say English, we usually get confused, thinking that English is only one language, one specific language, and that people use that the same way. But you would find the confusion arises that in certain kind of cases, such as with spellings, in terms of pronunciation, and so on, a lot of variables or differences can be found. So it creates confusion, and that is exactly what R.K. Narayan is addressing, but he is not criticizing it. He is exploring these in a very humorous manner. And we have already learned what is a humor, using sarcasm, or even using witty play of words, clever play of words, in fact, to bring out or to ridicule a fact. For instance, some of the differences, marked differences that you would find between British and English language is that you have an exercise there. I'm sure you would be able to figure it out. However, I would like to point out one here. For instance, holiday in British and vacation in American English. So these and another point that you need to note down is homonyms. I'm sure you are familiar with that. A word, same word, but having different meanings, such as the example of clip, C-L-I-P. We can say that on the one hand, we can say that it means to detach. And on the other hand, we can also say that it means to fasten, clip my hair, or cut my nails, clip my nails. So see, those are the different meanings that you would find with the word clip. So even though the spelling is the same thing, the word is the same thing, pronunciation may be same, it carries different meanings. Then again, you would find varying difference in spelling, such as honor, H-O-N-O-U-R in terms of British English, and H-O-N-O-R in terms of American English. So see, again, the spelling is different, even though pronunciation is very much the same. So these are some of the intricacies or the fascinating thing about the language that is English. Now, another matter here is the ambiguity in the language. What is ambiguity? Words that words that carries different, multiple meanings, that it can be interpreted in so many different ways, according to different context or culture, even we can put it culture in that way. So ambiguity, there's lots of ambiguity in the language. I overheard someone saying that, that I've lost my balance. He is referring to the fact that he does not have enough money to make calls in his phone. When the father replied that, if you don't have balance, you would fall down. So see, that kind of ambiguity in the single word like balance. So that is what we have here when we look into the language that is English. Now, the beautiful part of this is that it can also help you create a lot of clever play of words, such as pun, P-U-N, clever play of words, And then American English, here in the essay, American English is, in a certain case, it has been appreciated, or in other words, in certain cases it has been appreciated, but in some it was disproved. So, or criticized, we can say. There are some disadvantages to that. So when we compare the two languages, that is British with American English, you would find some distinctive marks. And these distinctions are brought about because of the fact that American English, in a very humorous way, R.K. Narayan said that it has undergone a process of toasting. So what is toasting? I'm sure you are familiar with toasting your breakfast or toasting your bread for that matter, And when we do that, when we toast it, what happens? Take the example of bread. First, you would find it soft and white, but if you toast it, it would turn brown and hard. So it undergoes a transformation. And using that metaphor, he described the American English as which has undergone a process of toasting. And in the later part of the paragraph, you would find that he cited what are those processes, what are the steps that led to that complete change or altercation of the language, the American English that we have today. Interestingly, the word toasted. Now, in the text, we learned that toasted English is referring to a muffin. So again, it's completely two different things, and yet we call it as toasted English. So if you are going to order something, if you say toasted English in a restaurant, you mean that muffin. So in America, that is the situation here. So in a very light-hearted, humorous manner, R.K. Narayan said that at least it has given some degree of attachment to its original language, that is the British English. Even if it's a muffin, they are referring to it as toasted English in America, which these kind of muffins are being made and produced, we can say, in America itself, in the soil itself. Now, so that is the humor that we find here. So again, remember, we see the play of words in the language itself. On the one hand, Narayan is making fun of it. At the same time, he's also making use of it in the essay. So to quote Narayan, we find that it had the process of toasting, that is, they went through a phase of throwing out British. They have done away with the kind of language that has to do with British English, but they have retained, kept a little bit of its originality or its connection with the real, with the original language, that is British English. So in other words, American English is borrowed from British English. And he referred to the process of toasting and the process of altercation in the language. So that is again being humorously pointed out with the phrase that is toasted English. Okay, so now let's take a look at it. What happened to the American English after toasting? The formalism or the passive voice that is being replaced with a direct way of speaking, saying exactly what you want to say, or you will find it in terms of in addressing a person or in statements. So formalism here is referring to the formal language that we use. So formal language, you would find that it is usually in the structure of a passive voice. So Narayan had said that the first process is that they have freed the language from the stifling tyranny of the passive voice. The passive voice can be, if you are to use it in everyday language, in everyday conversation, you would find it that it has a lot of nuances in the sense that it is very formal, it can be very lengthy, so that those kind of things, American English has freed it and replaced it with a more active voice and a direct way of talking. Take the example of quietness is to be kept by you. If I have to say that right now in passive voice, quietness is to be kept by you, that sounds just ridiculous. But if I just simply say, or one can simply say in American English, such as keep quiet, or quiet please. Or in some cases, someone might just say quiet without even a polite word like please. So those are some of the marked differences that you would find, and that is the process of change that has happened to the American English. The next, some of the examples that Narayan has pointed out in order to prove this point are words that are written on signboards, such as notice. On the notice, you would find words such as written and read as trespassing prohibited. In Berkeley Parks, if you're working in a place such as Berkeley Parks, you would find notice such as newly planted, don't walk. And yet again, this is very interestingly very funny, because American English, even though they have thrown out or they have done away with the passive voice, it becomes too direct again, which is something that the author has pointed out later on. Take the example of newly planted, don't walk. If we come across something like that and you took it literally, let's say that you are walking past in that, pass by along that park, and you come across these signboards that said newly planted, don't walk. Are you going to quit walking right there and then? If the meaning, when you took it literally, it can also get disintegrated, or it can also be misunderstood. The author humorously picked at the American language and pointed out its advantage and some of the disadvantages that are associated with it. And which is why he said that, which leaves no room for speculation, and a motorist need not spend too much time peering out and studying it. It becomes so precise. Such kind of notices are written in a very short manner, so precise that if a motorist is driving past by that kind of a signboard, they don't have to stop and read the whole thing. They can just simply make out what it means. So that is one of the advantage. American English changed the language into a simpler, short, and precise, or we can also say exact, more usable and easier to understand. That is one of the things that the author approved of. Yet the humor of sarcasm is seen in newly planted, don't walk. So these are again the things that he disapproved. Taking this notice word for word or literally, and the meaning intended in the notice can become contradictory, like I said, just as I have pointed out the example there. Now, in a similar situation, our authorities, which is referring to the Indian English, or we can also say the British English here. Why are? Because Indian English also borrowed from, in fact, try to uses the British English. So that's why he said, in a similar situation, if it is to happen in Britain, or for that matter in India, our authorities are likely to plant a 20-line inscription on the landscape to say, under Municipal Act such and such, and any vehicle stationed thereon will be deemed to have contravened subsection so-and-so Motor Vehicles Act, etc., etc. See, if you are to use the passive voice, unlike the American English, you would have to give so many unnecessary details, even on the notice board. And so that's why you may find it, you may not find it interesting enough to read it, you know. So that is what he is disapproving here. British English, on the other hand, focuses on too many unnecessary details. Comparing with American English, it focuses on too many unnecessary details, long statements for a mere notice or poster for that matter. Some of the examples, again, the author has cited are American office doors. On an American office doors, you may find a note that says, do not enter, very short and precise. And the thing that he appreciates is that American English never means words. It is very direct. Traffic signs at pedestrian crossings simply say go or wait. You know, it is being reduced to a single word that carries the exact meaning. In another incident in a Hollywood studio, he came across an incident at one point of time in a Hollywood studio where he read a signboard on the door that says, Mark Stevens, keep out. So he finds this ridiculous. Why? Because if Mark Stevens is supposedly to be a very important television personality, and if he wants some privacy, if he does not want people to know that he is in, why did he announce it? Why did he display it on the signboard saying that Mark Stevens is in there and that people should keep out? So these are some of the funny things that you would find even in the American English, because it has become too shortened and it has become too direct, in other words. So that is again something that he made fun of or humorously pointed out. And he added that he felt it as one of the mysteries that makes traveling interesting. And if you go travel and see the language English being used, you would find a lot of interesting things, such as in one of the incidents, someone narrated this incident to me, who was traveling and found in India he found that a salon he found that in a salon, the signboard reads head cutting instead of hair cutting. So if we have to take it literally, again, the kind of changes that is happening to the language and to the extent of its ridiculous nature, you would find those kind of things very interesting and humorous as well. So in other words, here, R.K. Narayan, he, in a very clever way, he pointed out what is good with the British English and what is not so good with it. The same thing goes with the American English. It is equally disadvantageous to use language in active voice excessively. If you are using active voice too excessively, it would also lose its meaning. And not mincing words versus too much circumlocution or beating around the bush, or for that matter, versus ambiguity. We already know what is ambiguity, multiple meanings. So the author, in a very clever way, humorous way, he juxtaposes, he brought these two different things together and compared the two languages and approves the fact that American language has freed the language from the passive voice, but disapprove the excessive use of the active voice and to the point where it does not mean words at all. So here we have the conflict, or we can say the formal language versus the informal, the indirect language versus the direct language. So that is what we have here in this lesson, that is Toasted English. We are going to find out more about what R.K. Narayan has to say, but for today, that would be all for this segment. And thank you all very much for joining me.